The great hall of the Galactic Dominion glittered with lights from hundreds of stars displayed across the ceiling. Representatives from more than 1,000 alien species had gathered there, their voices echoing in different tones, frequencies, and languages. It was the Grand Annual Council where war, trade, and new discoveries were discussed. At the center of the room sat General Sarathan, commander of the Varn Dominion Fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Her tall, scaled body shimmered in silver armor, and her reptilian eyes glowed with a faint golden hue. She was known for her victories, feared for her sharp strategies, and respected for her arrogance. She leaned back in her seat as a hologram of the Milky Way galaxy appeared before the council. A young alien scholar stood and said, "Another primitive species has been discovered, classified as Homo sapiens. The species calls their world Earth." The council murmured among themselves. Many species had heard of humans before, but few took them seriously. They were new to space travel, new to galactic politics, and still used machines instead of mental communication or biotechnology. In short, they were considered backward. General Sarathan smirked. "Humans," she said in a mocking tone, her voice cold and confident. "The creatures who think they can fight wars using metal and explosions. I saw one of their war recordings once. They fight with emotion rather than logic. How foolish." A few nearby delegates chuckled. Others nodded. To them, humans were small and fragile. Their planet was just another blue dot among billions. But not everyone laughed. At the back of the hall sat an older alien scholar named Terran, whose species had once underestimated humans and paid the price. He raised a thin hand and said, "General, I suggest caution. Humans may appear weak, but their strength lies in—" Sarathan interrupted, her voice sharp. "In chaos, yes, I know. Every lesser species claims that humans are unpredictable. But unpredictability is not strength. It is desperation." The council laughed again. The sound of amusement filled the hall, and the topic soon moved on to other matters: pirate fleets, mining rights, and new colonies. But Terran's eyes lingered on the hologram of Earth, spinning silently in space. He had seen something in humans that others had missed. A spark. Weeks later, in a remote region of the galaxy, Sarathan's fleet was stationed near the border of unclaimed space. The Varn Dominion was expanding its control, searching for new planets and resources. Their scouts had detected strange signals, radio waves and transmissions from a nearby star system. It was Earth. Sarathan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the VDS Wrathclaw, observing the blue planet through the viewing screen. "So this is their world," she said softly, almost to herself. "Let's see what makes them so interesting." Her second-in-command, Captain Drav, bowed slightly. "Shall we send a scout ship, General?" Sarathan smirked. "No, let them see us. I want to know how these humans react when they realize who rules the stars." Moments later, the massive Varn fleet appeared in Earth's orbit. Panic erupted across human space agencies. Satellite feeds went down, communication networks overloaded, and governments scrambled for answers. The United Earth Council met within hours, sending emergency alerts to every military base. On Earth, a man named Commander Elias Kane sat in a dimly lit control room deep beneath the mountains. He was part of Earth's Space Defense Division, a newly formed branch meant to protect the planet from extraterrestrial threats, though until now, it had been theoretical. He looked up at the giant monitor showing alien ships surrounding Earth. "So," he said calmly, "first contact isn't friendly after all." A young officer beside him stuttered, "Sir, their technology is beyond anything we have. They could wipe us out." Kane stood, his posture straight and his eyes steady. "Maybe," he said, "but that's not how humans give up." He ordered all satellites to be repositioned, all military systems to go into defensive mode, and every communication channel to broadcast one simple message: "We are ready to talk." When Sarathan received the human message, she laughed. "Ready to talk? How bold for a species so primitive. Let us entertain them." A transmission link was established between her flagship and the human command base. Sarathan appeared as a tall, armored figure with glowing eyes on the human screen. Kane stood before her holographic image, calm, firm, and unafraid. "Greetings," Sarathan began, her tone laced with arrogance. "I am General Sarathan of the Varn Dominion. You stand before the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. Your planet now falls under our control. Surrender peacefully and we may allow your species to serve. Kane didn't blink. Earth doesn't surrender, he said. Not to anyone, her eyes narrowed. You speak bravely for someone who cannot win. Winning, Kane said, isn't always about power. It's about will. For a moment, Sarathin was silent. His words carried a weight she hadn't expected. Then she smiled coldly. Then show me this human will. You have one planetary cycle to prove your worth before I decide your fate. The transmission ended. In the following days, Earth prepared. The world united in a way it never had before. Nations put aside old rivalries. Scientists shared secrets and militaries worked together. Humans knew they could not match the alien fleet's technology, but they had something else: creativity, adaptability, and courage. Kane became the symbol of resistance. Every news channel showed his speech. We may be small in the eyes of the galaxy, but every great story begins with the underestimated. Let them come. Let them see what it means to be human. Meanwhile, aboard the Wrathclaw, Sarathin observed Earth's frantic activity through her monitors. They prepare as if they stand a chance, she said with a smirk. Their courage amuses me. Terran's voice came from behind her. The old scholar had joined her ship for observation. Perhaps you should not laugh too early, General. Sarathin turned her head. You think they can harm us? I think, Terran said slowly, they might surprise you. They always do. As the final day approached, the humans launched a message into space, an invitation for one-on-one dialogue. Sarathin accepted, deciding to appear before them personally. I will go to their planet, she declared. Let them see what true power looks like. Her shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, a streak of silver cutting across the blue sky. The world watched as she landed on a military base surrounded by human soldiers. Their weapons were primitive, their armor crude, but their eyes steady, unflinching, met hers without fear. And then, from among them, Commander Elias Kane stepped forward. Sarathin tilted her head, studying him. So you are the voice of your kind? Kane nodded. And you're the one who laughed at us. Her golden eyes gleamed. Yes, she said with pride. And I see no reason to stop. Kane smiled faintly. Then maybe, he said, you haven't looked closely enough. The wind blew dust between them. The soldiers stood silent. The alien general and the human commander faced each other. Two figures from different worlds, but the same fire burned in their eyes. In that moment, the galaxy's greatest warrior realized something unexpected. This human did not fear her, and that unsettled her more than any weapon ever could. The air around the military base was heavy with tension. General Sarathin stood tall, her silver-scaled armor gleaming in the sunlight, while human soldiers surrounded her with quiet discipline. The world watched the scene live through cameras and satellites. It was the first time in history that a powerful alien commander had set foot on Earth. Commander Elias Kane faced her with calm confidence. He knew the alien general could destroy the entire base with a gesture if she wanted to. But his expression never changed. His posture was steady, his eyes focused. Sarathin studied him carefully. The human looked ordinary. No strange abilities, no glowing armor, no sign of fear. Yet there was something in his calmness that bothered her. He didn't behave like someone standing before a conqueror. He behaved like an equal. So, Sarathin said, her voice deep and echoing, this is the human courage everyone speaks of, standing still even when you know you cannot win. Kane replied quietly, courage is not about winning. It's about standing for what's right, even when you know the odds are against you. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You speak like a philosopher, not a warrior. I've been both, Kane said simply. The alien commander's eyes glowed faintly golden. Then let us see which part of you is stronger. She turned to her soldiers and gave a sharp order in her language. Two Varn warriors stepped forward, their armor black and their eyes bright red. They were much taller than humans, their muscles powerful, their movements precise. Each carried an energy staff that could cut through steel. Kane glanced at them, then back at Sarathin. You want to test us? I want to understand you, she said. Show me how your kind fights. Kane looked to his men. Sergeant Lee, Corporal Hayes. Two human soldiers stepped forward, one tall and calm, the other short but quick. Both saluted sharply. Let's show them how humans fight, Kane said. The arena was prepared outside the base. The ground was marked. Cameras floated in the air and soldiers from both sides stood watching. It was not a battle to the death. It was a demonstration of skill and spirit. The two Varn warriors stood on one side, their energy weapons humming. On the other, the two human soldiers tightened their gloves and adjusted their helmets. Their weapons were simple rifles and tactical knives. The difference in technology was obvious, but their determination was strong. Sarathan watched from her high seat, her golden eyes fixed on Kane, who stood near the human side as an observer. "Your soldiers are brave," she said, "but bravery will not save them." "We'll see," Kane replied. A signal horn sounded. The duel began. The Varn warriors moved fast, much faster than humans. One charged straight ahead, the other leaped high, using his staff to swing through the air. The ground shook when they landed, but the humans didn't panic. They split apart, moving with perfect coordination. Sergeant Lee rolled aside and fired, not to hit but to distract. The alien's armor deflected the shot easily, but it forced him to slow down. Meanwhile, Corporal Hayes used smoke grenades to block visibility. Within seconds, the field was covered in a gray cloud. The Varn warriors growled, their helmets adjusted for thermal vision, but by the time they switched modes, the humans had changed position again. From the smoke, a voice came. "Humans never fight fair." The next second, both Varn warriors were hit by a sudden flash, a magnetic pulse grenade. It disabled their weapon systems for a brief moment. The humans used that chance. Lee jumped forward, sliding under the alien's guard, and struck at the leg joints with his knife. Hayes followed, throwing a flash charge to blind the second alien temporarily. When the smoke cleared, the two Varn warriors stood frozen, their armor sparking lightly. They were not defeated, but they were clearly surprised. No one had ever used such fast and adaptive tactics against them. Sarathan's eyes widened slightly. She had expected humans to fight wildly or fearfully, but this was strategy. Kane walked up beside her, arms folded. "We use what we have," he said. "When you can't match power, you use creativity." Sarathan turned toward him slowly. "Impressive," she admitted. "Your soldiers think like hunters." But this was a small test. True war is chaos. It demands endurance. "Then give us a harder test," Kane said firmly. She raised an eyebrow. "You ask for challenges?" "Humans don't learn by hiding," he replied. Her golden eyes gleamed with interest. "Very well, human. You shall have your challenge." 3 days later, Sarathan announced her next move. She invited Kane and a small human team aboard her flagship, the Wrathclaw, to participate in a joint training operation. It was meant to show the difference between human and Varn military systems, but she secretly wanted to see how far human courage could really go. When the shuttle lifted from Earth and entered orbit, Kane gazed at the stars through the viewport. For a moment, he felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Humanity had always dreamed of the stars, but now he was traveling to the heart of an alien warship that could destroy his planet with ease. As the shuttle docked, the massive hangar of the Wrathclaw opened before them. The air shimmered with energy fields. Hundreds of alien soldiers stood in rows, silent and disciplined. Their eyes turned toward the humans as they stepped off the shuttle. Sarathan was waiting. "Welcome aboard my ship," she said. "Try not to get lost." Kane and his team followed her through metallic corridors lined with glowing symbols. The technology around them was beyond anything Earth had imagined. But Kane wasn't intimidated. He observed carefully, memorizing every detail. They arrived at a wide training hall. In the center stood a massive simulation ring, a combat test zone that could create any environment through holographic projection. Sarathan gestured to it. "You wanted a harder test. Here it is," Kane nodded. "What's the scenario?" "Survival," she said simply. "You and your team will face an enemy unit inside the simulator. If you last 10 minutes, you pass, and if we fail," her lips curved faintly, "then perhaps you will understand your limits." Kane smiled slightly. "We'll see." Inside the simulation ring, the environment changed. The humans found themselves standing in a dense alien jungle filled with mist and strange sounds. The ground vibrated faintly. Somewhere in the distance, energy weapons crackled. "Stay low," Kane ordered quietly. "We don't know what they're sending." Suddenly, mechanical drones appeared from the shadows, sleek, spider-like machines armed with plasma blasters. They moved fast, scanning for targets. The humans spread out. Kane's team used natural cover, moving silently through the brush. When the first drone spotted them, Kane threw an electromagnetic pulse grenade. The blast shut down 2 drones instantly, but more came crawling from the darkness. The team moved as one, coordinating attacks, setting traps, and using their limited ammunition wisely. The aliens watching from outside expected the humans to be overrun within minutes, but that didn't happen. They kept fighting. Even when surrounded, Kane didn't back down. He used a fallen drone's own weapon against its companions, adapting on the spot. His team followed his lead with the same determination. Time passed. 8 minutes, 9, then 10. The simulation ended. The jungle vanished, replaced by the shining floor of the training hall. The humans stood covered in dust and sweat but alive. Sarathin looked at them in silence. Around her, Varn officers exchanged shocked glances. No other species had ever lasted that long in a first simulation. Kane stepped forward, breathing hard. 10 minutes, he said. You wanted a challenge. For the first time, Sarathin didn't laugh. Her gaze softened slightly. You surprise me, human. You are not like the others I have conquered. Kane met her eyes. We never wanted to be. She studied him for a long moment before turning away. You've earned my attention, Commander Kane, she said finally. But this test is far from over. As she walked away, a strange thought crossed her mind. For the first time in years, she felt curiosity, not contempt for another species. And deep inside, though she wouldn't admit it yet, respect was beginning to replace laughter. The Wrathclaw glided through space like a silent predator, its hull glowing faintly under distant starlight. Inside, hundreds of Varn soldiers moved with mechanical precision. The atmosphere was cold and efficient, until the humans arrived. Commander Elias Kane and his small team had been on the alien ship for a week. Every corridor still felt strange, every corner watched by curious eyes. Yet they carried themselves with quiet dignity. Even though they were far from home, they acted as if Earth's honor rested on their shoulders. General Sarathin had been observing them closely. At first, she expected fear, confusion, or desperation. Instead, she saw discipline, cooperation, and something else, hope. It was a strange thing to witness on a warship that had crushed entire worlds. One morning, Sarathin summoned Kane to the command bridge. As he entered, the alien officers paused their work, their golden eyes following him. The human stood straight and saluted politely. You called for me, General? He said. Sarathin turned from the massive viewing screen, her scaled armor catching the light. Yes, I have a new task for you. Kane waited silently, his expression calm. A distress signal has been detected from an abandoned mining world, Korvax 9, she said. It lies near the border of Varn-controlled space. Pirates have taken over the planet. They are led by a rogue species that defies Dominion law. I intend to cleanse it. Sounds simple, Kane replied. So where do we come in? Sarathin's golden eyes narrowed slightly. You and your team will go down with one of my units. Consider this your next test. If humans wish to prove their worth, let them face a real enemy. Kane didn't hesitate. We'll go. A faint smile touched Sarathin's face. Good, but remember, my soldiers won't protect you. Kane met her gaze evenly. They won't need to. Hours later, the strike force prepared for deployment. The hangar was alive with movement. Varn soldiers loading weapons, ships humming with power, and engineers sealing armor plates. The human team stood ready in their own corner, checking their gear. Their technology was simple compared to the aliens, but it was theirs, built with human hands and ingenuity. Sarathin watched from above as they boarded the dropship. Tarin, the old scholar, stood beside her. You send them into danger, Tarin said quietly. Is this curiosity or cruelty? Neither, Sarathin replied. It is truth. If they survive, they prove their strength. If they fall, then all their talk of courage means nothing. Tarin's eyes glimmered. Be careful, General. Strength without understanding can blind even the greatest. Sarathin didn't respond. Her gaze followed the ship as it launched into the darkness of space. The dropship broke through the thin clouds of Korvax 9, entering a sky filled with dust and lightning. The planet below was scarred. Craters, broken mines, and old machines half buried in sand. Once, it had been a center of metal extraction. Now it was nothing but ruins. Kane stood near the cockpit watching the gray horizon. Everyone stay sharp, he said through the comm. Unknown hostiles, unknown layout. Expect traps. Beside him, Sergeant Lee adjusted his visor. Feels like home, he muttered. The pilot's voice crackled. Touchdown in 30 seconds. When the ship landed, the ramp opened with a hiss. The Varn soldiers moved out first, their tall figures scanning the area with glowing visors. The humans followed, their boots sinking into dusty ground. The silence was strange. No birds, no wind, just the hum of energy weapons. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From behind the ruins, a swarm of pirate drones appeared, firing bursts of red plasma. The attack came fast and chaotic. "Contact!" Kane shouted. "Take cover!" The Varn soldiers returned fire with perfect coordination, their blue energy blasts cutting through the air. The humans ducked behind metal wreckage, firing in bursts, using the terrain to their advantage. The sound of battle echoed across the dead planet. One of the Varn captains, a tall officer named Rator, glanced at Kane through the smoke. "Stay behind us, human. This is not your fight." Kane ignored him. He moved forward, covering two of his teammates who were pinned down. A drone fired toward them, but Kane shot at midair, the blast hitting its power core. The drone exploded in a bright flash. The Varn captain stared in disbelief. "He moves without fear," he muttered. The battle raged on for nearly an hour. Finally, the last drone fell, burning in the sand. The air smelled of ozone and smoke. When silence returned, the Varn soldiers stood among the wreckage, inspecting the damage. Many of them were surprised to find the humans still alive and still ready to fight. Rator approached Kane. "You fight like a Varn," he said reluctantly. Kane smiled slightly. "No," he said. "We fight like humans." As night fell over the dusty planet, the joint force made camp inside the remains of a mining facility. The atmosphere was tense but calmer. Some Varn soldiers began to respect their human allies, though they didn't admit it aloud. Sarathan's hologram appeared above the campfire, her image flickering with static. "Report," she said. Rator saluted. "The pirates' drones were destroyed, General. We have minor injuries but no losses." Her golden eyes shifted toward Kane. "And the humans? They fought bravely," Rator admitted. "They did not retreat once." Sarathan studied Kane's face for a moment. "You've done well, Commander. But your mission isn't over. The pirates' main base lies deeper underground. Destroy their control core and we will consider this operation complete." "We'll handle it," Kane said. Her voice turned colder. "Be careful. The enemy you face below is not only machine." The hologram vanished. The next morning, the team descended into the underground tunnels. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, remnants of some old civilization. "This place gives me bad vibes," Hayes whispered. "Stay alert," Kane replied. "Keep your lights low." They moved carefully, step by step, until they reached a large chamber filled with old mining machines and something else. A massive structure pulsed in the center, glowing faintly red. It looked alive. "What is that?" Sergeant Lee asked. Before Kane could answer, the floor shifted. The red light brightened and mechanical tendrils rose from the ground. The AI core of the pirate base had awakened. It spoke in a metallic voice. Intruders detected. Eliminating threats, the battle erupted instantly. Energy blasts filled the air. Machines came alive and debris flew in every direction. The humans and Varn fought side by side, their weapons lighting the chamber like fireworks. Kane noticed that the AI's power source was buried behind thick walls. "Cover me!" he shouted. He dashed through the chaos, ducking under falling debris. A plasma beam grazed his shoulder, burning his armor, but he kept running. He reached the power conduit and planted an explosive charge. "Charge set," he yelled. "Fall back!" Rator roared. The team ran out of the chamber just as the explosion tore through the ground. A shockwave rolled down the tunnel, followed by silence. When the dust settled, the red glow was gone. The pirate AI was destroyed. Kane coughed, wiping soot from his face. "That's done." Rator looked at him with newfound respect. "You risked yourself for others. You fight like one who values more than victory." Kane nodded quietly. "That's what makes us human." Back aboard the Wrathclaw, Sarathan stood by the viewing window watching the stars drift by. When the report came in, she listened carefully. The humans had succeeded. Terran approached her. "You seem thoughtful, General." Sarathan's voice was calm but distant. "They survived again. Even my elite units struggle on Korvax 9, yet they accomplished their mission." "Perhaps," Terran said softly, "you begin to understand what I meant." She looked at him. "That strength lies not only in power but in heart?" Terran smiled faintly. "Yes." Sarathan turned back to the stars. In her mind, she saw the image of Kane standing amid smoke and fire, defiant yet calm. For the first time in her long military career, she wondered if she had been wrong about humans. When Kane returned to the Wrathclaw, the crew stood silent as he walked through the hangar. Alien soldiers who once mocked humans now watched with quiet respect. Sarathan met him at the command deck. "You completed the mission," she said. "Yes, General," Kane replied. "Objective destroyed, no fatalities." She stepped closer, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "You disobeyed my order to stay with the main unit. You risked your life for others. Why?" Kane looked her straight in the eyes. "Because no one gets left behind, not on my team." Sarathan studied him for a long time, then finally nodded. "Perhaps there is more to your kind than I thought?" Kane smiled slightly. "You're starting to see it." As she turned away, a quiet thought formed in her mind. He is not like the others. And for the first time, General Sarathan, the proud conqueror of 1,000 worlds, felt something new in her chest. Not anger, not pride, but respect. The stars outside the Wrathclaw shimmered like diamonds scattered across an endless ocean. Inside the ship, life continued with perfect order. Soldiers trained, engineers repaired, and officers monitored distant systems. But deep within the command deck, something had changed. General Sarathan was quiet. For the first time in her long career, her thoughts wandered. Images of Earth, of Kane's steady eyes, and of the battle on Korvax 9 played in her mind. The human commander had done what even some Varn captains could not. He had led with courage, not fear. And he had risked himself for others. She stood near the main viewport, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Behind her, the old scholar Terran entered softly. "You've been staring into space for quite some time, General," Terran said gently. Sarathan didn't look back. "The stars are quiet tonight." Terran tilted his head. "Or perhaps it is you who has grown quieter." Her tail flicked slightly, a sign of irritation. "Do not mistake reflection for weakness." "I wouldn't," Terran said. "But perhaps you've begun to see what I once saw in humans." Sarathan turned to face him. "They are brave, yes. But bravery alone does not win wars." "True," Terran agreed. "But it inspires those who do." Before she could respond, the alarm lights flashed red. The voice of a Varn officer echoed through the intercom. "Warning! Unidentified fleet approaching at high velocity." Sarathan straightened instantly, her mind snapping into command mode. "Source?" she demanded. "Outer sector, 5 ships heavily armed. Identification unknown." Terran frowned. "Pirates?" "No," Sarathan said, narrowing her eyes. "This formation is too disciplined. Prepare shields. Bring the humans to the bridge." Minutes later, Kane entered the command deck with his team. The alien officers gave him uneasy glances, but none dared question why a human was present. Kane walked up beside Sarathan, who was staring at the holographic display of the approaching ships. "What's the situation?" he asked. "They are closing fast," Sarathan said. "No transponder codes, no communication. Whoever they are, they come to fight." Kane studied the formation. "That's not pirate movement. Look at the spacing, tight, controlled. Military precision." She gave a small nod. "You notice details quickly," he replied. "Observation is survival." The first enemy volley hit moments later. Energy blast struck the Wrathclaw's shields, shaking the massive vessel. The bridge filled with the deep hum of power surges. "Shields at 70%, shouted an officer. "Return fire," Sarathan commanded. "Target their engines." Blue beams lanced through space, hitting 2 of the attacking ships. One exploded, but the others pressed on. The Wrathclaw shook again. Kane gripped the railing. "They're not random attackers. They're testing your defenses." Sarathan's tail flicked again. "Then let them test our wrath." But even with all her confidence, the enemy's strength was alarming. Their weapons were fast and their tactics sharp. For the first time in many years, Sarathan felt the fight slipping beyond her control. As the battle raged, Kane stepped closer to the main console. "Permission to assist," he said. Sarathan shot him a look. "You think you can command a Varn ship?" "No," he said calmly. "But I can help you think like a human." She hesitated for a brief second, then nodded. "Very well. What do you suggest?" He pointed at the map. "Their ships focus on your front shields. They're expecting you to stay defensive. Humans would do the opposite. Turn the weakness into bait." Her golden eyes narrowed in interest. "Explain." "Pull power from the rear shields to the front," Kane said. "Pretend your back is open. When they move in to strike, turn hard and fire your secondary cannons. Hit them from the side." Sarathan looked at him, then at her officers. "Execute the maneuver." The crew obeyed. The Wrathclaw shifted position, moving slower than before. The enemy fleet, seeing a gap in the rear defenses, turned to attack. "Now," Kane shouted. Sarathan's command followed instantly. "Fire all batteries!" The ship spun with sudden speed, unleashing a wave of energy blasts. The enemy fleet was caught in the trap. 2 ships exploded instantly. A third broke formation and retreated. The bridge erupted in shouts of triumph. Even the Varn soldiers who had doubted humans began to look at Kane with new respect. Sarathan turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "That tactic, it should not have worked." Kane smiled faintly. "Sometimes the impossible works when you believe it can." She looked at him for a long moment before saying softly, "Perhaps humans are not as predictable as I thought." Hours later, after the battle ended and the debris drifted silently in space, the Wrathclaw returned to normal operations. The humans were given temporary quarters near the command deck. Sarathine, however, couldn't rest. She found herself walking through the silent corridors of her ship, her mind heavy with questions she had never asked before. She had fought countless wars, conquered dozens of planets, and defeated enemies far stronger than humans. Yet in just a few weeks, one human had made her question everything she believed about power and honor. She stopped at the observation chamber, where Kane stood alone, gazing at the stars. "You should be resting," she said. He turned slightly, smiling. "Could say the same to you." She approached, her steps silent. "You could have stayed back during the battle, yet you risked yourself again." He shrugged. "That's what leaders do." She studied him quietly. "Your people fight for survival. Mine fight for glory, and yet somehow your way seems pure." Kane looked at her. "Glory fades. Survival teaches meaning." For a long time neither spoke. Only the quiet hum of the ship filled the air. Finally, Sarathan said, "I have spent my life conquering. I have never met a warrior who fights not for power but for hope." "You confuse me, human." Kane chuckled softly. "Maybe that's what humans do best. Confuse others until they start understanding." Her lips curved into something that almost looked like a smile. "You speak strangely, and you listen better than most," Kane replied. The next day, a new message arrived at the Wrathclaw. It came from the Dominion High Command. The message was short and alarming. General Sarathan returned to the core sectors immediately. Humans are to be detained and transferred for study. Sarathan read the message twice. Her eyes hardened. The Dominion feared what it did not control, and Kane had now become a symbol of something unpredictable. Terran entered as she stood frozen, the message glowing before her. "I see the High Command finally noticed your guests," he said softly. "They want to treat them as test subjects," Sarathan said, her voice low. "They believe humans are a threat. Are they wrong?" Terran asked. Sarathan's tail twitched. "Perhaps they are right, but not in the way they think. A threat of spirit, not weapons." She turned off the message and walked toward the exit. "Where are you going?" Terran asked. "To speak with the human," she said. "Before my own people make me do something I will regret." In Kane's quarters, the air felt heavy. He had already guessed what was happening. When Sarathan entered, he stood up. "They contacted you," he said quietly. She nodded. "They fear what they cannot control. They see you as danger." Kane's jaw tightened. "And you?" She hesitated. For once, the proud general seemed unsure. "I see something different. Something worth protecting." He looked surprised. "You'd protect us from your own command?" "I am not sure yet," she said honestly. "But I know this, if they take you, humanity will lose its chance to stand equal. And that would be a mistake." Kane's voice softened. "You've changed." Her eyes glowed faintly. "You changed me." They stood in silence for a moment. Beyond the window, stars drifted slowly by as if listening. Finally, Kane said, "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Sarathan nodded. "Then prepare your people. The storm is coming." That night, the Wrathclaw sailed silently through the void. The humans rested in their quarters, unaware of the full danger ahead. In the command chamber, Sarathan stared at the stars and made her decision. She would defy the Dominion. The woman who once laughed at humans now risked everything for them. She no longer saw weakness in their struggle. She saw the same fire that had once burned in her own heart, before war had hardened it. As she stood there, Terran approached one last time. "You are choosing a dangerous path," he warned. Sarathan didn't look away from the stars. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the dangerous path is the only one worth taking." The stars outside the Wrathclaw burned cold and distant, but inside the tension was electric. General Sarathan had made her decision. The humans aboard her ship were no longer guests, no longer subjects to be tested, they were allies. The Dominion High Command would not take their defiance lightly. Orders had come. Detain the humans and bring Sarathan to trial. But she refused. Her pride, her respect for Kane, and the spark of something she had not felt in decades, all of it demanded that she act. Prepare the fleet, she told her officers. Her tail flicked with controlled energy. We are leaving Dominion space. Any who follow will be considered hostile. The bridge filled with shocked murmurs. General, one captain protested, you would challenge the Dominion? Sarathan's golden eyes glowed. I would protect a species I respect. The Dominion fears strength it cannot control. We will show them what that strength truly means. Terran, standing quietly behind her, whispered. You are certain? I am, she replied. This is no longer about power. This is about honor. Kane entered, flanked by his team. We're ready, he said. His voice was steady, filled with quiet determination. Sarathan regarded him carefully. You realize the danger? Kane nodded. Danger is part of life. Fear is part of growth. We'll face both. For the first time, the general smiled faintly. Then let us move together, human. The Wrathclaw slipped into hyperspace, leaving the Dominion core sectors behind. But the peace was short-lived. Scouts detected a pursuing fleet, Dominion ships, dozens of them converging with deadly speed. Shields at full power, Sarathan commanded. Divert energy to all weapon systems. Prepare for battle. Kane's team moved swiftly, coordinating with alien soldiers. The humans had learned the ship's layout, its capabilities, and its weaknesses. Together, they formed a bridge between alien precision and human ingenuity. The first wave of Dominion ships appeared as glowing silhouettes against the stars. Their weapons fired, cutting through space with bright streaks. The Wrathclaw shook under the impact. Return fire, Sarathan roared. Blue beams lanced into the fleet. One ship exploded, then another, but more continued to advance. Kane observed the enemy formation. They rely on straight assaults, he said. They expect you to respond predictably. We won't. Sarathan raised an eyebrow. Explain. Divide the fleet into 3 zones, Kane instructed. Humans and Sumvarn take the flank. Others draw the center. Use decoys. Force them to split. Their coordination is strong, but it's not perfect. Sarathan considered the plan. Then with a nod, she commanded, Execute. The Wrathclaw spun gracefully, ships separating in coordinated flares. The Dominion fleet, expecting one target, suddenly found itself attacked from multiple directions. The humans moved with unshakable focus, timing distractions and traps perfectly. For hours, the battle raged. Energy beams, explosions, and the hum of advanced engines filled space. Yet amid chaos, Kane's calm voice guided the humans and Sarathan's elite officers. Every move counted. Finally, the flagship of the Dominion High Command, a massive black vessel known as the Imperator, was exposed. Its shields weakened after repeated hits. Sarathan's golden eyes gleamed. Target their core, she commanded. Kane's hands flew across the controls, guiding a precise strike. A beam of concentrated energy tore through the Imperator's shields, hitting the central reactor. Sparks and explosions cascaded across the flagship. The Dominion fleet faltered. One by one, their ships retreated into hyperspace. For the first time in decades, Sarathan allowed herself to exhale. The humans had not only survived, they had helped defeat a fleet of her own people. Later, aboard the Wrathclaw, the bridge was quiet. The Dominion ships had vanished, leaving only silence and the distant glimmer of stars. Kane and his team sat, exhausted but proud. Sarathan stood near the viewport, her expression unreadable. Finally, Kane broke the silence. You led us through that battle. Without you, none of us would have survived. She turned slowly, her golden eyes softening. And without you, perhaps I would not have learned what humans are capable of. Kane smiled faintly. We fight for each other, not just for victory. Sarathan nodded. I see that now. A lesson many of my kind have never learned. Terran, observing silently, whispered to her, You've changed, General. You see strength not as domination, but as courage. She allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps humans can teach even the proudest of conquerors something new. Days later, the Wrathclaw returned to Earth orbit. The humans and Sarathan stood together, facing the blue planet that had been their home and their symbol of hope. The world below erupted in celebration as news spread that the Dominion threat had been repelled. Humanity had survived against overwhelming odds, guided by a combination of courage, ingenuity, and trust. Kane and his team stood at the forefront of the celebration, but Sarathan remained beside them. For the first time, she did not stand as a conqueror. She stood as an ally. A small ceremony was held aboard the ship. Kane addressed the crew, human and Varn alike. Today proves that courage is stronger than fear, and cooperation stronger than division. Humans and Varn fought together, and together we survived. Applause echoed through the hangar. Even Sarathan, proud and reserved, allowed herself a faint nod of approval. After the ceremony, Kane and Sarathan walked to the observation deck, gazing down at Earth. "You've changed many minds," Kane said quietly. "Including mine." Sarathan tilted her head. "And you've changed mine, human. I laughed at your kind at first. I thought humans were weak, foolish, and unpredictable. Now you respect us," Kane finished. "Yes," she said softly. "But more than that, I admire you." Kane smiled, a quiet pride in his eyes. "Then perhaps we are not so different after all. Courage is universal." She regarded him for a long moment, then said, "Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is what makes humans worthy of the stars." Months passed. The Dominion did not forget, but it no longer underestimated Earth. Alliances were formed, treaties signed, and humanity's reputation as a species capable of courage, innovation, and resilience spread across the galaxy. Kane continued to lead the humans, now recognized as a commander not just of Earth, but of those who fought alongside her on the Wrathclaw. Sarathan remained close, not as a master or ruler, but as a partner and ally, a being who had learned humility and respect. Terran watched the two of them, a faint smile on his lips. "The galaxy has changed," he said softly, "because one human dared to stand and one alien dared to see." Sarathan, standing beside him, looked out at the stars. "And perhaps the galaxy is better for it." Kane joined her quietly. They stood in silence, gazing at the planets, stars, and infinite possibilities ahead. Together they had faced impossible odds, defied expectations, and learned that strength is not measured by power alone, but by courage, trust, and honor. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and wonder, but humans and their allies were ready. And in the heart of it all, Sarathan knew that she would never again laugh at the courage of a human warrior, because some sparks, once ignited, could light the darkness of the stars.